My classmates all think I'm a gullible pushover, always standing up for others even when it has nothing to do with me. It all began because my off-the-charts sense of justice once made me stand up for a girl at the next desk who was being bullied. Whenever someone picked on her, I spoke up for her. Her family was poor, so I brought her breakfast every single morning, yet simply because I turned her down when she confessed to me. She publicly slandered me, claiming I had molested her. The school's golden boy crashed from his pedestal and became a rat everyone wanted dead. Later, when my dad went to her home to reason with her family, her mentally unstable father stabbed him to death in a frenzy. My mom couldn't bear the shock and passed away not long after. And still the girl reached out to me from the mud, wearing a twisted, sick smile. She said, "George, you used to stand so high above me that I wasn't good enough for you. Now look, you're rotting in the mud right beside me." When I opened my eyes again, I was somehow back on the very first day she transferred into our class. Chapter 1. Second year high school. First period. The homeroom teacher walked in with a girl whose head hung low. She announced, "We have a special new student joining us today. I expect everyone to treat her well, no discrimination." Curiosity filled the room as we sized up the newcomer. The moment she raised her head, a collective gasp shot through the class. Her face was delicate and finely featured, but her right eye was gone, leaving only a hollow, terrifying socket. Whispers erupted at once. "Damn. Scared the hell out of me. Look at that horror mask face. Missing an eye and she doesn't even cover it. Just our luck. Out of all the classes, they dumped this freak in ours." I lost my appetite for lunch the moment I saw her. So gross. How does she dare show her face like that? With every cruel comment, the girl's head drooped lower, her hands clutching the whitened hem of her skirt. My desk mate shot me a look, waggling his eyebrows. Any idea how she went blind? Think her parents were careless and poked it out? Suddenly I jolted awake inside my own memories. Willow. I was back on the very day Willow transferred, the day every nightmare began. In my last life Willow suffered the class's scorn from the start. Objectively speaking, she was pretty and petite, minus that one flaw. She could have passed for a gentle, classical beauty, but at an age where exam pressure bleeds into dreams, right and wrong are just empty words in a textbook, compared with the fleeting thrill ripped from a numb, stifling life. Morality means nothing. So many students dulled their own pain by feasting on someone else's. Mocking the weak became a trend, and her physical defect only fueled it. Add her withdrawn nature, and she ended up with no friends at all. Back then my righteous fury exploded, and I volunteered to have Willow sit beside me. I cursed out every classmate who jeered at her. Yet now, faced with my desk mate's question, I blurted without thinking, "Who knows, maybe she brought it on herself." By then the teacher was already assigning Willow a seat. She told Willow to pick any spot, but wherever Willow tried to walk, classmates recoiled as if she were a plague. Willow shuffled to my side and asked in a voice barely louder than a mosquito, "See, could I sit next to you?" But unlike my previous life, I didn't leap up to offer her the seat. Instead I stood and told the homeroom teacher, "Sir, I don't want to sit beside her. If she insists on that desk, I volunteer to move to the discipline monitor seat by the podium." The teacher looked awkward, and Willow's gaze toward me turned strange. He said, "George, I just reminded the class, no discrimination against new students. What you're doing hurts unity." His words went in one ear and out the other. Given this second chance, I would show Willow no kindness at all. Just then a classmate nearby sneered, "Some people flash their outstanding student certificates every day but are really two-faced hypocrites. The new girl only wants to sit beside you. Must you wear your disgust so openly?" I turned to the speaker. It was Makoto, a petty soul who had competed with me for class committee posts last life and lost. Ever since, he'd nursed a grudge, waiting to strike back. When Willow framed me before, he spread the rumor everywhere, even told the teacher, until the whole school knew. I laughed at him. "Makoto, since you're so compassionate, why not let the new student sit next to you?" Color drained from Makoto's face. He said nothing. I pressed on. "What's wrong? Weren't you the righteous hero a moment ago, stepping up for the new girl? Why shrink now? Or do you also loathe sharing a desk with a one-eyed half-blind girl?" I stressed the words one-eyed. Willow beside me trembled all over, her head drooping even lower. Prodded. Makoto snapped, "George, that's way out of line." "Sir, let her sit next to me, I don't mind." And so Willow became Makoto's desk mate. I watched him swallow his revulsion and fuss over clearing her desk, and I exhaled in relief. I couldn't stop Willow from transferring into our class, but I could avoid any contact with her. The tragedy of my last life would never happen again. Only now Makoto was her seatmate. He was the one stepping in for her. Would the nightmare that ruined me last time fall on Makoto instead? Chapter 2. The morning classes flew by amid non-stop gossip and speculation about Willow. As soon as the bell rang, my best buddy David leaned over and said, "Something's off, George, this isn't like you. You seem downright hostile to the new girl. Aren't you the guy who always sticks up for the underdog? I thought you'd be helping her again. My hand trembled as I packed my stationery. So that's how everyone sees me, a soft-headed do-gooder who can't stop righting other people's wrongs. That's why, in my previous life, when Willow's confession failed, she chose to destroy me and accused me of molesting her. She must have thought a nice guy like me would never dare turn her down. Expressionless, I said. I read something recently. Respect other people's destinies and drop your savior complex. If you don't meddle with the causes, you won't be buried by the consequences. David blinked in surprise. He hadn't expected that from me. I didn't want to keep talking. Right now, I just needed an excuse to go home and check on my parents. Last time, Willow's accusation spread through the entire senior high division because she was disabled. The school, eager to flaunt its care for the handicapped, expelled me before investigating. My dad, furious, went to Willow's home to confront them and was hacked to death by her deranged father. My mom refused to accept the verdict and appealed again and again, always in vain. I still remember that night, slapping myself in guilt, kneeling and begging my mom for forgiveness. Was it wrong to help people? Why does a good deed bring no reward? My mom sighed and said, George, have you ever thought about this? Kindness and reward are both forms of expectation. Hoping that kindness will be rewarded is just another kind of expectation. And since it's an expectation, kindness doesn't necessarily come with a reward. But just because that expectation was shattered doesn't mean helping others was a mistake. At the very least, you should have put yourself in a completely safe position first. As your mom, I do want you to be a righteous person, but selfishly, I wish you had never helped her. That way, your father could have come back. With that, my mother stepped off the rooftop. I can still see Willow's sick, twisted smile. She said, the insane aren't criminally liable for murder. Now my biological dad is in a psych ward. Your dad really solved a big problem for me. Then she added, now your parents are both dead. So you and I are the same. We've finally fallen into the same mud pit and can stay together forever. Turns out the story of the farmer and the viper was unfolding right beside me. Because of my actions, my parents met tragic ends. Now I only want to be sure they're safe and alive. I hadn't even reached the office to ask for leave when I saw Willow being shoved into the restroom by several classmates. I remembered it clearly. In my previous life, Willow was bullied from the very first day. Instead of pitying her, they treated her as a freak, forcing her to drink toilet water, hurling insults, even overturning a wastebasket full of filth over her head. Unable to stand it, I stepped in front of her and beat those bullies bloody. From that moment, she decided I was her salvation, the only one who could pull her out of the mire. I ran into the exact same scene from my previous life, but this time I would never step up for someone like Willow again. She wears a pitiful shell of oversensitive self-loathing, yet inside she's dark, twisted, and afraid of the light. I backed away 2 steps to avoid her pleading gaze. Someone had a boot on her head. Dirty washwater streaked her face. Still she wouldn't give up. She stretched out a hand, trying to grab my trouser leg. Help me, she begged. I shook her hand off at once. Only one line echoed in my mind. Let go of the savior complex. Respect other people's fates. Just then Makoto walked out of the classroom. I expected him to put on his usual fake good guy act and help her, but he pretended he hadn't seen a thing and ducked straight back inside. Interesting. Willow, soaked and stinking, was being bullied. Her uniform reeked. Wet hair plastered in strands across her cheeks. I watched Makoto put on a show. Willow, what happened? Did someone bully you? Tell me and I'll report it to the teacher. He looked positively sympathetic. Willow kept her head down, silent, only occasionally glancing up at me with a thoughtful look. Alarms blared in my head. Something felt wrong. In this life I hadn't offered her the slightest help. Why was she staring at me? Could it be that even as her enemy, I'd still end up etched into her memory? Chapter 3. I honestly don't care if Willow resents me, because deep down, she's just pathetic. When it comes to the people who bullied and humiliated her, she never dared to fight back. Instead, she humbled herself to hang out with them. In fact, in my past life, she even messed around with Martin, the one who led the bullying. But to those who helped and cared for her, she schemed and used them, as if their kindness was something she deserved by default. In this life, I didn't help her. I didn't take the initiative to become her desk mate, and I didn't stand up for her when she was bullied. So many nights in my past life, I hated myself for stepping in for her, for letting my sense of justice get the better of me, only to bring ruin to my own family. I gave her a cold look and said, "What are you staring at? It's not like I'm the one who bullied you. Try staring at me again and see what happens." Willow looked away, feeling wronged. Her head bowed and fists clenched. She bit her lip stubbornly and said nothing. That's right, Willow was just like this in the last life. Whenever something happened, she'd just bow her head and stay silent, tears brimming in her eyes. It was that pitiful expression that made me help her again and again. Of course, Her reaction only triggered a wave of laughter from the other students. Someone jeered without a shred of mercy. Ha ha ha. She's even crying now. Who knew a blind girl could cry? Cry a bit more, maybe the other eye will go blind too. Then at least it'll be symmetrical. Could even look better. A girl chimed in. Seriously, having someone like her in our class just drags down the whole average attractiveness. At that moment, one of the instigators of the previous bullying incident swaggered over to my desk. It was the same guy who had led the abuse earlier. He leaned in and said casually, "Well, look at that. Even our top student Wang doesn't like that blind freak. Wanna have a little more fun with her?" I stared at him coldly. This guy was Martin, the same Martin who, in my past life, held a grudge against me for repeatedly reporting his bullying. When he saw me getting close to Willow back then, he came up with a plan to humiliate me. He tricked Willow into sleeping with him, then made her confess her love to me. In short, Martin was absolute scum. Seeing that I didn't respond, he took it as tacit approval. He leaned in and whispered near my ear, "I heard her dad's a moron, and they live off welfare, monthly handouts from the state. What do you think would happen if I started charging her protection money? Wouldn't her idiot dad and her be left starving on air? Ha ha ha." The next second, thud, I picked up a textbook and slammed its corner down on the hand he had resting on my desk. He yanked his hand back in pain and shouted, "What the hell is wrong with you? Trying to play the hero or what?" Upon hearing that, Willow, who had been hanging her head the whole time, suddenly looked up. She peeked at me from the corner of her eye. I sneered, "Why are you yelling so loud? Are you brain dead? Extortion and blackmail, ever heard of criminal law? Go check how many years that carries. Relax, you're underage. They won't sentence you too hard. At most, a few years in juvie and you're out." Martin glared at me and growled, "So you really do want to stand up for her?" I couldn't help but laugh. I replied, "No, I just simply find you disgusting. Whatever you're planning to do, go do it." "What's that got to do with me?" "What's that saying again? A dog that bites doesn't bark. You get it or not?" As I walked out of the classroom, Willow's gaze toward me became more and more complicated. Chapter 4. After class in the afternoon, all the students had gone back to the dorms. I had asked for leave to go home, so I headed straight out of school. But just as I stepped out of the school gate, I heard a cautious girl's voice from behind me. She said, "Thank you for speaking up for me this afternoon." I turned around and saw Willow following behind me. I had no idea when she even started trailing me. Immediately, I looked at her warily, my eyes filled with open disgust. I spoke with thinly veiled contempt. "What do you want? Why are you following me out of school?" She quickly waved her hands, forcing a weak smile. She bit her lip and said, "Sorry, don't misunderstand me. I didn't mean anything by it. I'm a day student. I just wanted to say thank you. I know you're not like those classmates who mocked me. You're a good person. You always have been." She stammered as she spoke, her eyes full of hopeful anticipation. Then I remembered, Willow, because of her poor family situation, was indeed a day student. At noon, she ate the school's subsidized lunch from the student aid program. Dinner, she always had at home, but all I felt now was bitter amusement. I replied with disdain, "Seriously, what's going through your head? Saying thank you? Did I not make myself clear enough? I had no intention of helping you. Honestly, I don't even like looking at you. Not because of how you look, but because of that whole pitiful act you keep putting on. Playing the victim like that, it's disgusting. Willow, you better stay the hell away from me. Or else, I won't mind giving you a taste of what those bullies did either." I didn't want to go from victim to abuser, but if becoming an abuser meant Willow would stay far away from me and my family could stay safe, then I would do it, even if it made me sick. My sense of right and wrong only exists if me and the people I love aren't hurt. Willow stood frozen, frowning slightly, as if completely baffled by my words. As I walked away, I could hear her murmuring to herself, "This isn't right. He shouldn't treat me like this. I'm so pitiful. He's supposed to feel sorry for me." Hearing that, I felt a cold chill run through my body, like a venomous snake slowly crawling up my leg. Chapter 5. When I got home, I saw my parents, alive and well. I couldn't help but cry tears of joy. Thank God, I still had time. This time around, I could still protect them. Because of Willow, I couldn't help but stay on guard. I wasn't afraid of much. What really haunted me was the thought that maybe, just maybe, Willow had been reborn too. If that were true, then everything I did would be for nothing. So I started by telling my parents that something bad had happened at school, something that could seriously damage my reputation. I told them, with some modifications, about events that hadn't yet occurred. I emphasized that even talking to Willow's family would be pointless. Her father had a mental illness. There was no way to deal with people like that, and I didn't want this to impact my college entrance exams. In the end, I asked them to let me transfer schools. At first, my parents weren't on board, but after hearing me lay out the pros and cons, they finally sighed and said, People like that, we can't afford to provoke them. There's always something hateful in the story of someone who seems pitiful. George, you're right. We have no choice but to stay away. Okay, we'll transfer you. Your college entrance exam is too important. Chapter 6. Transferring schools wasn't easy. My dad needed time to pull strings and make arrangements with the new school. Back at my current school, I made sure to keep my distance from Willow. Wherever she walked, I would avoid. I never spoke to her, and if I had to, my tone was cold and cutting. Very quickly, the whole class knew that I despised Willow, so much so that even breathing the same air as her seemed unbearable to me. At first, Willow's days were miserable. She had physical issues, her grades were terrible, and she was at the absolute bottom of the class hierarchy. But once people saw how I was deliberately targeting Willow, my old nemesis, Makoto, suddenly started showering her with kindness. He brought her food, helped her with homework, all the things I did for her in my past life. Makoto started doing them now, but he wasn't doing it out of kindness. He just wanted to prove that he was better than me, that the classmates who once voted me as class rep had picked the wrong person. Gradually, I noticed that Willow's eyes stopped lingering on me. Instead, she started watching Makoto. I'm not sure when it started, but eventually, Willow began getting close to Martin, the same guy who used to bully her. They were often seen together, acting like a couple. Someone even told me that Willow had been stealing money from home to spend on Martin. Not only was she covering all his meals, she also paid for his cigarettes. She was now publicly calling herself his sworn sister. Willow pierced her ears and tongue, even got a floral tattoo sleeve. She looked just like one of those wannabe gangster girls. When Martin stared lewdly up girls' skirts in the school hallways, Willow would step in and play matchmaker, helping him approach the ones he had his eye on. She even started helping Martin and his crew bully smaller classmates, mocking girls who weren't good-looking. If Willow used to be a victim, she had now fully transformed into an aggressor. Because of her special appearance, even the head of student discipline turned a blind eye. I started to feel a vague sense of unease. But then, my dad gave me some good news. He'd finally secured a spot for me at a top high school in the city, a transfer slot earned through favors and connections. At the latest, I could officially transfer next week. Relief washed over me. The fear and anxiety I'd been carrying finally lifted, and with that peace of mind, I decided to carry out my plan. The transfer would be my exit strategy. But before I left, I wanted to leave Willow a parting gift. Just like my mom used to say, good things happen to good people, is just wishful thinking. Likewise, bad people will get what they deserve, is nothing more than a hollow hope. If people like Martin and Willow are allowed to run wild in school, how many more students will fall victim to their abuse? For those already bullied, the damage is done. Saying something like, karma will get them eventually, means nothing, just empty comfort. So even if I couldn't take them down completely, I had to make sure they couldn't keep hurting others. And soon, the opportunity came. That Friday, the school would hold its annual spring sports day. Afterward, the high school division would be given an extended weekend break. In my past life, it was right around this time that Willow confessed her feelings to me. Chapter 7. Based on my observations over the past few days, Willow seemed to have lost all interest in me. After all, the one pulling her out of the mud this time around was Makoto. So, on the afternoon of the school sports day, during our free activity time, a girl suddenly ran over to Makoto and said, "Makoto, the campus queen wants to meet you by the little grove next to the garden." There was a strange look in her smile. That grove next to the school garden was the unofficial go-to spot for secret meetups and hookups. In my last life, this same girl had come to find me. This time around, it was Makoto instead. Makoto casually slicked his hair back and replied in an exaggerated tone, "The campus queen, which one? I won't go unless you tell me clearly." Despite what he said, he immediately threw on his jacket and stood up, ready to head out. The next second, I stuck out my leg and deliberately tripped him. Makoto fell flat on his face like a complete fool. Furious, he got up and shouted, "George, what the hell is your problem? What did I ever do to you?" I teased him. "You say you're not going, but your body's being pretty honest about it. The campus queen wants you. Seriously, you really bought that? You must have been holding back for so long your brain slid right down into your pants." His face, which had been burning with anger, suddenly went calm. He grinned strangely and said, "Haha, I get it now. You jealous loser. Don't tell me you've got a secret crush on the campus queen. And now that your goddess is making a move on me, you just can't take it, can you?" Fine. He could think whatever the hell he wanted. Without another word, Makoto ignored everyone trying to stop him and marched straight toward the grove. I shook my head, didn't feel like interfering any further. But today marked the critical turning point for my last life. If I wanted to set them up, I had to get involved. So after a moment of thought, I quietly pulled aside a few of my close friends and gave them some instructions. Then I slipped a portable loudspeaker into my backpack and followed after him. Chapter 8. I had just stepped into the grove when I saw Makoto sprinting out in a panic. His face was bruised and swollen, and the moment he saw me, he nearly dropped to his knees. He pleaded, "George, help me. The person who invited me here, it wasn't the campus queen at all. They're trying to extort me." So I asked, "Where are they? What kind of extortion? Want me to call the police?" I still remembered what had happened in my past life. After Willow's confession failed, she accused me of trying to assault her in this very grove. Could it be that they saw Makoto had money and were now trying to extort him with a fake harassment accusation? Makoto shook his head. "No cops, please. No cops. My dad would literally kill me. Can you just talk to them? They've always been scared of you, right? Just warn them for me, please." His eyes were shifting all over the place, and he kept trying to push me toward the grove. I knew something was off, but this actually played right into my hands. So I let him push me in, and I walked right into the trap. Sure enough, the moment I stepped in, a group of people emerged from the trees. There were over a dozen of them, mostly the same school punks and delinquent girls who usually hung around Martin, and even a few sketchy guys from outside the school. Someone laughed and said, "Damn, you really got skills. You managed to trick the class rep into coming out here." Makoto's expression changed instantly. He slicked his hair back and grinned proudly. "What are you all standing around for? Bring out our female lead. A confession scene needs the main character, doesn't it?" Then Willow was pushed out from the group. Same shy expression on her face. My brows lifted instinctively. She walked over to me, bit her lip, and said, "George, I've always liked you. Will you be my boyfriend?" I stared at her blankly, then glanced at Martin and Makoto standing behind her, enjoying the show. I was completely thrown off. Why the hell was Willow still confessing to me in this lifetime? So I asked, "What exactly do you like about me?" Willow thought for a moment, looked at me dreamily, and said, "I like how bad you are when you yell at me. That complete jerk energy, you're such a toxic guy. I love that." I was speechless, actually nauseated. Around us, the crowd started hooting and cheering. "Come on, say yes already. You should feel honored. Getting a confession from Willow is a blessing. Man, don't you know? Willow's our Martin's sworn sister now. He's got her back. Life's only gonna get better from here." Someone else snickered under their breath. "Haha, Martin already set everything up for you. Even this blind girl, just sit back and enjoy it." Another voice chimed in. "What are you waiting for? Willow, be bold. Kiss him already. How else will he know how sincere you are?" Egged on, Willow threw her arms around my neck and stood on her toes, trying to kiss me. The next second, I raised my leg and kicked her mercilessly to the ground. Martin exploded. "You ungrateful piece of shit. What the hell are you all waiting for? Hold George down and beat the crap out of him." The crowd began to close in on me. I quickly reached into my backpack, pulled out the portable loudspeaker, and flicked the switch. BZZZZZT. A loud burst of static blared out, shrill and ear-splitting. Everyone instinctively covered their ears. I raised the loudspeaker to my mouth. With a steady gaze and a clear, confident voice, I shouted, "Everyone, back the hell off. Do your parents work their asses off just to send you to school so you can hook up and flirt all day? Don't you have anything better to do? How about grinding out a few practice tests instead? Doesn't that sound more productive? Everything you're doing here is an insult to your teacher's efforts. You've got no respect at all. Not like me, my mind is full of nothing but worksheets and test scores, all for getting into a top university. You lured me here with this little trap hoping I'd sink with you. Dream on. I'm a righteous man of pure virtue. No matter how pretty the girl is, it's all just lipstick on a skeleton. 3,000 worlds and all the temptations of this mortal realm, none of it compares to even a sliver of eternal truth." Then I turned to Willow. "And you, Willow, you colluded with thugs from outside school to bully your own classmates. Do you think that's how you repay the trust of our homeroom teacher? How about the poverty aid funds the school arranged for you? No one looks down on you for being poor, but acting like this, that's a problem with your character and your moral compass." The sharp static, paired with my theatrical monologue, completely caught the crowd off guard. By the time I finished, deliberately over the top, applause rang out from the edge of the crowd, just as I'd expected. The discipline director appeared under the sunlight, his bald head gleaming. Right behind him was our homeroom teacher, face grim. They pushed their way through the crowd, and the discipline director declared loudly, "Well said, George. No wonder you win the Outstanding Student Award every semester. This is what a role model looks like." Then he pointed around. You, and you, all of you, to the office. Now, bring your parents. And these people, I don't even recognize them. Are you from off campus?" The outside thugs froze when they saw the discipline director. Clearly, they had planned to sneak away, but now they were caught red-handed. They immediately started yelling. It was Martin. Martin and Willow told us to come. They said with the sports day going on, We could slip in easy. Told us there were hot girls in their class we could mess with. God knows where they found these guys. One sentence in, and they were already selling out their employers without hesitation. Willow's face turned ghostly pale. The next second, she dropped to her knees in front of the homeroom teacher and the discipline director. Choking back sobs, she cried, "Teacher, it wasn't me. Martin made me do it. He's been bullying me for a long time. He forced me into this." Beautiful. The blame game had officially begun. Of course Martin didn't take it lying down. They turned on each other instantly, pointing fingers, shouting accusations. I dropped one more casual bomb. "Oh, and what about the classmates you bullied, Willow? The blackmail photos? Was that all Martin's doing too? And the money you've been handing over to Martin for the past 2 weeks, where exactly did that come from?" As I spoke, I pulled out a sheet of paper from my bag. "Teacher," I said, "I have here a list of students who've been extorted by Martin and Willow. Feel free to check with them to verify whether I'm telling the truth." Willow's face went completely white. I had achieved the exact result I wanted. I looked down at Willow, still kneeling on the ground, mocking her with my eyes. She turned her head slightly, staring at me in disbelief, like she'd just realized everything had been part of my plan from the start. Back when I followed Makoto here, I had already sent David to notify the discipline director and our homeroom teacher. What I hadn't expected was for Willow to confess to me again. At most, I thought she'd get Martin to rough me up a bit out of revenge for how I'd treated her. But this was even better. Chapter 9. Because I had brought the loudspeaker in advance. Everything that happened in the Grove spread across the entire school in no time. Most of the people involved were already on the discipline director's blacklist, delinquents and bottom-of-the-class troublemakers. So he decided to make an example out of them. Almost all the parents of those involved were summoned to the school. That included Willow's parent. Of course, ironically, thanks to my righteous speech, my cooperation with the discipline team, and helping expose student extortion, I ended up receiving public praise from both faculty and students. I walked away from the mess squeaky clean. In the school office, I saw Willow's father for the first time. He was wearing an old, dark blue work uniform, faded and stained. His face was dark and leathery, his back hunched, with a huge protruding lump on it. His hair looked like it hadn't been cut in months, and he was covered in dust, as if he had come straight from a construction site in a rush. The moment he entered the office, he dropped to his knees before the homeroom teacher, and began kowtowing without a word. Classic image of the humble working man. I stood off to the side, watching coldly. This was the same humble man who, in my last life, stabbed my father 18 times. Every stab was fatal, and yet, he escaped all legal punishment by claiming mental illness. I took a step back. My parents arrived at the school shortly afterward. They were caught off guard by the scene. My father seemed to sense the emotional turbulence in me. He put a firm hand on my shoulder and said, "George, it's okay. Mom and Dad are here. We've got your back." I nodded. This time, I wasn't going to let history repeat itself. Even the homeroom teacher looked a bit awkward at Willow's father's reaction. She said, "Willow's father, please get up. We invited you here to discuss your daughter's education. What are you doing kneeling like this?" Only then did Willow's father lift his head and look at Willow. Without saying a word, smack, he slapped her hard across the face, sending her tumbling to the ground. He growled, "Teacher, just tell me what this worthless little slut did. I'll make sure she gets what she deserves." No one said a word throughout the entire ordeal. Willow kept her head down in silence. Even after being slapped to the floor, she didn't make a sound. The homeroom teacher sighed helplessly. "Willow's father, please calm down." Then she began to recount everything that had happened. But halfway through, Willow's father suddenly turned his eyes on me. There was something deeply unsettling about his expression. The look he gave me was exactly the same as the one Willow often gave me. Then he mumbled, "So that's all this is. I thought something serious had happened. She's just a girl. What could she know? Tell you what, why don't you folks give me 100, 200,000 yuan? And we'll call it even. She'll be your son's wife from now on. Do what you want with her." Everyone in the office was stunned. My dad in particular was so furious he nearly lunged at the man then and there. But Willow's father suddenly changed his tone. Gone was the submissive laborer. He now had a sleazy grin, flashing his yellowed teeth as he looked at my dad and said, "What, did I say something wrong? I'm already being generous by not making a fuss. Ever think maybe your son was the one who took advantage of my daughter and then ditched her? She had no choice but to find someone to back her up." My dad snapped, "Bullshit. Shut that filthy mouth of yours. I don't want to hit you in front of the teachers, but you're seriously testing me. No wonder your daughter turned out like this. She learned it from her shameless old man. You're both scum." My dad's face flushed with anger. But he still held himself back. That was thanks to the warning I'd given him ahead of time. Otherwise, I'm sure he would have lost it on the spot. And now, I finally understood why my usually composed and rational father had ended up stabbed to death in my last life during an argument with Willow's dad. Because Willow's father was even more vile than Willow herself. I said, "Dad, don't waste your energy on scum like him. Your son walks with a clear conscience. They ganged up and assaulted people, so let's just call the cops and let the law handle it." The moment I mentioned the police, Willow's head shot up like she'd been jolted awake. She rushed forward and clung to her father, her voice trembling with panic. "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. My dad has a mental illness, don't take what he said seriously. Please, I'm begging you, we're both disabled. Please don't push us into a corner, okay?" She dropped to her knees and begged in front of my entire family. Classic emotional blackmail, she played it well. Even the homeroom teacher hesitated. "Maybe let this go. George, we all know you're a good student, but as you can see, Willow's family has a tough situation, and her father has mental issues. There's no need to involve the police. You're still young. Students fight and argue sometimes, it happens, and no serious harm was done, right? Let's not blow this out of proportion." But I stood my ground. "It's too late for that. I've already called the police. They assaulted people, committed group violence, and extorted classmates. If the school can't handle this, then the authorities will." That had been my plan from the start, to make this as public as possible. With the police involved, Willow wouldn't be able to flip the story later and accuse me of anything. Once an official report is made, with names and records in place, everyone will know what really happened. With this background set in stone, if she ever dares to spread lies about me again, I'll sue her for defamation. For now, my minimum goal was to get these people expelled, to get justice for the students they had tormented for so long. People like them always thought being the underdog meant they automatically deserved pity and protection. But their crimes, they paid zero price for them. That's exactly what let their arrogance grow unchecked. Willow saw that I wasn't budging. That soft, shy mask she always wore shattered instantly. Her eyes turned bloodshot as she stared at me, hatefully. "George, you're really heartless. You're trying to destroy me, even if I like you and you don't feel the same. Do you really have to ruin my life over it? And how is this my fault? They were the ones trying to hurt you. It's not like they even touched you. What are you calling the cops for?" I'm ruining her life. I had only returned the exact pain she once inflicted on me, and that's already too much for her to bear. Expressionless, I replied. "Your so-called love makes me sick. Also, ever heard of the law? They acted on your orders, so yes, you're criminally liable too. And FYI, attempted crimes are still crimes." Thanks. I didn't bother saying anything else. My dad had calmed down too, because the police had arrived. Truth be told, I already knew how these situations usually play out. In my past life, when I was falsely accused, the cops always tried to smooth things over, telling us not to escalate, urging boys to be the bigger person, let the girl apologize, and let it go. But really, who's to blame for that? If anything, it's this society that constantly tells men to be tolerant, to suck it up. They say it's easy to lie, but exhausting to clear your name, and they're right. There are too many clueless bystanders out there, ready to eat up any drama thrown in front of them. I'd lived through all of that before. So I ask, why should we always be the ones to stay silent? If I were the one who had lured a girl into the woods, tried to force a kiss on her, and brought a group of people to beat her up, would people still be telling her to just forgive me? Chapter 10. Martin and Makoto were forced to withdraw from school. As for the other boys who had followed Martin, they were publicly criticized and given serious demerits in their records. But Willow was a different case. The school never officially announced any punishment for her. She was a transfer student brought in under special circumstances in the first place. Both society and the school had shown her family extreme leniency, and the parents of the students who had been extorted, when they saw Willow's disabled appearance and her mentally ill father, most of them backed off. They didn't want to make a scene. They feared public backlash and media scrutiny. Once the police got involved, Willow pushed half the blame onto Martin, claiming that she, too, had originally been one of his victims. And since some of those claims were indeed true, the teachers leaned toward believing she had been coerced. Then the final verdict came, and what shocked me most, Willow was merely suspended for 1 month. That's it. In my last life, when rumors spread that I had tried to assault her, the school didn't hesitate to kick me out on the spot. Shortly after the suspension decision was made, a video suddenly popped up online. In the video, Willow and her father were being interviewed at home. They lived in a crumbling shack, the room cluttered with junk. There was only one cracked bed frame and a few tattered quilts. Willow's father, eyes brimming with tears, wiped his face and said, "My daughter's punishment was too harsh. She's just a girl, and disabled too. She's always been bullied by her classmates, but I never thought they'd actually try to force her out of school." What did we do wrong? Is it really this hard for people like us to survive? My daughter's always been obedient. We rely on each other to get by. She's worked so hard to study, look at the awards she brought back from school. She'd never hang out with bad kids or bully others. There must be some kind of misunderstanding. I hope he sees this and comes forward to help us. The camera panned across the stained walls behind them, zooming in on several faded certificates, most of which were from her elementary school days. Then Willow spoke, her voice soft, eyes lowered. I don't know why the boy hates me so much. At school, he always spoke very casually around girls, not very respectful. I looked at him once. Maybe he misunderstood and thought I liked him. Later, I think that misunderstanding caused some conflict between him and another boy who had expressed interest in me, but why should their fight drag me into it? I never liked him. I just admired how hardworking and good he was. I really hope he'll tell the truth. The video gained massive attention within hours. It quickly surpassed 1 million likes. Soon, the entire internet was hunting for that boy, and obviously, it was me. Those two really knew how to twist a narrative. Even though this time around, Willow hadn't falsely accused me of assault, she'd found another way to drag me through the mud. She hinted at me being flirtatious with girls, painting me as someone inappropriate, leaving just enough ambiguity to let the public's imagination run wild. Soon, I was being labeled as an ordinary guy with an inflated ego. Someone who couldn't handle rejection and tried to ruin a girl's life because of it. Someone who, after getting taught a lesson by his rival, retaliated by faking claims of bullying and getting them kicked out of school. Public opinion is terrifying. It crushes quietly, indiscriminately, and by then, I had already transferred to a new school. The fact that Willow wasn't expelled left me with a sense of frustration, but reality reminded me, perfectly executed plans rarely exist. Human perception is limited, so it's impossible to predict outcomes with absolute precision. The longer and more complex the plan, the more variables come into play, and the harder it is to pull off, which is why I've come to believe success doesn't rely on a single master plan, but on persistent effort and adaptability in the face of changing circumstances. So when Willow once again tried to spread rumors about me, I wasn't unprepared. The online backlash was building fast. Soon, someone dug up my personal information. Almost everyone was convinced I had falsely accused Willow. They believed someone from her background could never do something so malicious. Society, at times, shows immense tolerance for people with disabilities. What they didn't consider is this: there are good and bad people among the disabled too. Willow and her father. They were the kind of bad people who wore disability like a costume. They preyed on people's pity and compassion, using it as a weapon to hurt others. My parents were furious. They wanted to post a video to defend me, but I stopped them. In a situation like this, simple clarification wouldn't do anything. You don't fight a wildfire with a squirt gun. If you want to change the narrative, you need a bigger fire. Right now, the internet was singing Willow's praises. They called her an inspirational figure, a poor, disabled girl who still worked hard, stayed optimistic, and pushed forward. But what if her darker side was exposed? Back then, in order to please Martin, Willow had done plenty of shady things, and just when countless netizens were praising her, just as prestigious universities were reaching out to offer her scholarships out of sympathy, a new video started trending online. It revealed Willow had helped Martin extort younger students, even playing matchmaker for girls Martin had targeted. At first, nobody believed it, but soon, more and more clips began surfacing. Some people were clout chasing, others were telling the truth. One comment stood out among the rest. I know that girl Willow in the video. She lived next door to me in elementary school. You know how she lost her eye? She was stealing from our house and accidentally hit her eye on a standing fire poker. She knocked over a lit stove and burned down our entire home. Her family made us pay compensation. Who are we supposed to turn to for justice? That comment shot past 100,000 likes. Soon, more and more people began digging up Willow's past. People started questioning the truth behind her viral sob story. And me? I didn't need to do a thing. They had built their image with lies, and now, public opinion was tearing them down. All the kind-hearted donors who had planned to support Willow's family backed out one by one. In no time at all, Willow went from being a precious symbol of perseverance to someone everyone wanted to see burn. I stopped paying them any attention. They could no longer affect me, no matter what they said from now on. No one would believe them anymore. I heard that Willow's father was fired from his construction job because of all the drama online. Unwilling to accept it, he tried sneaking into the site one night to steal copper wiring to sell for scrap. He was caught, and while trying to flee, he fell from a building and died on the spot. Willow, of course, tried to spin the tragedy to her advantage. She went to the construction company almost every day, demanding compensation. but the owner declared bankruptcy and disappeared, with no payout in sight, and no skills to support herself. Rumor has it, Willow's days became absolutely miserable. As for me, I had already started my new life, at my new school, and returned to focusing on what truly mattered. Epilogue chapter. For a long time, I had been worried that Willow, like me, had also been reincarnated. If that were true, she might have anticipated my every move, but in the end, I was just overthinking it. Still, just because she hasn't been reincarnated now doesn't mean she won't be at some point in the future. So, I believe that simply avoiding her is the worst possible strategy. If she ever remembers anything from the previous life, it's only a matter of time before she comes looking for me. That being said, I could never seem to find the right opportunity to settle this matter once and for all. One night, I had arranged to go to an internet cafe with some classmates for a gaming session, but on the way back, a dark figure suddenly emerged from an alleyway. It was Willow. She looked haggard, her eyes fixed on me like a dead stare. Through gritted teeth, she said, "It's all because of you. You're the one who ruined me. Are you satisfied now? I have nothing left." I steadied myself and quietly told the classmate next to me to call the police. Then I looked at Willow and said coldly, "You ended up with nothing because of your own actions, not because of me. You brought this on yourself. No one forced you, and I certainly didn't ruin you." Of course, if Willow were capable of understanding that, she wouldn't have shown up to say this in the first place. I didn't want to push her too far. After all, the last thing I needed was for her to snap and drag me down with her. And as expected, I soon saw her hand emerge from behind her back, clutching a small knife. She looked at me and smiled. "Lately, I keep having this strange dream. Do you know what it is?" "In the dream, on the first day I transferred to your school, I became your desk mate. You took care of me, brought me breakfast, helped me study. When others bullied me, you fought them off for me. In the dream, you treated me so well. Why did it all turn out like this? You do like me, don't you? You just care too much about what others think. That's why you won't be with me. I know that much." Though her mind was clearly unstable, Willow had indeed remembered things from our previous life. I stared at her coldly and said, "Willow, if something's wrong with your head, get help. And let's not even start with whether that dream is real. Why would you assume that just because someone helps you, they must like you? I don't believe you don't understand that logic, because you once said the same thing to me. Just because I glanced at you doesn't mean you can assume I like you. Besides, didn't I already tell you? Being liked by someone like you makes me feel sick." I glanced at my friend, uncertain whether just one witness would be enough to keep me out of trouble later. Logic told me not to provoke Willow too much right now. My classmate whispered, "She's insane. I've already called the police. Let's just head for a place with more people." But Willow kept staring at me. Suddenly, a strange grin spread across her face as she said, "Is it true? That dream I had, was it real? I figured it out a long time ago, but it's too late now. Did you have the same dream too? Is that why you tried to strike first? Just so you wouldn't have to deal with me again? All I ever did was like you. You're such a nice person. Can't you just accept me?" I looked at her, took a deep breath, and sneered. "Willow, you still don't get it. Kindness is something that benefits both others and oneself. Helping someone is supposed to fulfill your own sense of morality, not make you feel disgusted just to appease someone else. And as for love, I believe love means helping each other grow, not dragging down the person ahead of you so they can fall into the mud with you." Willow kept staring at me, walking toward me step by step. She bit her lip and said, "I'll never be able to catch up to you in this life if I don't drag you down. Will you ever even glance at me? You have no idea what I've been through. Looks like I'll have to gouge your eyes out, then maybe you'll finally be willing to be with me." As she spoke, a mad, maniacal laugh burst out from her throat, and she lunged at me. Just as I was preparing to end this once and for all, the local police officer in the area suddenly tackled Willow to the ground and restrained her. Weapon still in hand, Willow was taken into custody. Attempted murder, at least this charge would keep her behind bars for a few years. The moment I walked out of the police station, I let out a long sigh. Under the flickering neon lights by the side of the street, the officer kindly called a car for me. As we passed by my neighborhood, I saw an old woman still running a vegetable stall late into the night. As always, I spent all the cash I had on me to buy up everything she had, and told her gently to head home and rest early. The old woman's wrinkled face broke into a kind and warm smile. With trembling hands, she carefully picked out the freshest-looking vegetables and handed them to me. Then she gave me back the extra change. She said, "Young man, the vegetables will spoil if you don't finish them. Grandma knows you mean well. It's late, make sure you get home safe too." There are many people in this world who are unfortunate. Some of them are genuinely kind, but some are just as pitiful as they are hateful. Wherever you are, the first rule of helping others is this: protect yourself first. May this world have more light than darkness, and may kindness never be betrayed. Chapter Extra. 7 years later, outside the prison, Willow squinted into the glaring sunlight outside the prison gates. The dazzling daylight stung her eyes. She thought about the men who had ruined her life and landed her in prison 5 years ago. Her heart sank into a heavy gloom. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have ended up like this. She wondered what expression he'd have if he knew she had been released. Just imagining the fear on that heartless man's face filled Willow with a rare sense of delight. Humming softly, she walked away from the prison. She could hardly wait to see him again. George. It's been 5 years. Would he have forgotten about her by now? She couldn't let that happen. Chapter 1. 7 years had been more than enough for George to leave everything behind. He had been given a second chance at life. In this life, George lived up to everyone's expectations. He was accepted into a top university. His parents were safe and healthy, and his past no longer dragged them down. He made good friends in college, met warm and caring roommates, and even found someone he truly loved. 2 years after graduation, the two of them supported each other through thick and thin. Now, they were talking about marriage. George had brought his girlfriend home to meet his parents. Mrs. Wang adored the girl, so much so that she even joked about adopting her as a goddaughter, if George hadn't stopped her. After dinner, George walked into the kitchen to help his father with the dishes, but his father sighed heavily, breaking the casual mood. He said, "George, there's something that's always weighed on me. Do you still remember that girl, Willow?" George nodded calmly. "I remember." "What about her?" His father replied, "I heard she was recently released from prison. I'm a little worried. A lunatic like that, with no family or roots, who knows what she might do?" His father's concern wasn't unfounded. In truth, George had already known about Willow's release. Just the day before, he had received a package. No sender name. Inside were dozens of letters, every single one addressed to him. Letters Willow had written to him, month after month, from prison. He had never read a single one. Each time he received one, he sent it back, and now, all of them had come back at once. That was her message to him: "I'm out." George understood this clearly. Willow had never let go of her grudge, not once in 7 years, and now that she was free, she would surely do something insane again. After dinner, George took a walk with his girlfriend in the community garden. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to be honest with her about the situation. After quietly listening to everything, her expression remained calm. After a long pause, she scoffed and said, "So, are you telling me this because you don't want me to worry, or because you think I'll be scared and break up with you since someone's coming after you?" George chuckled. He replied, "Are you testing me, or testing yourself? I told you this because I don't want you getting dragged into any of it." But his girlfriend simply leaned gently on his shoulder. She said, "Thank you for telling me, but none of this is your fault. You're just too kind for your own good, and kind people shouldn't be punished for it. No matter what happens, I'll stay by your side." Hearing her words, George pulled her tightly into his arms. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time, and he had already made his plan. 7 years in prison hadn't changed Willow one bit. It was time for her to pay the final price. He would never let her hurt his family. Chapter 2. Willow didn't go straight to see George. Instead, she found a job as a courier sorting assistant. She didn't take the job to make a living. She chose it because the delivery station was the closest one to George's home. From there, she could watch him from a distance. Every single day, he wore suits now, looked more mature, the picture of a successful man. Countless times, she had the urge to run after him, to throw herself into his arms, and then slowly drive a knife into his chest, inch by inch, to feel his blood, warm and hopeless, run over her hands. That must be what love looks like. Just imagining it made her heart pound. Willow watched George like this for 2 full months, and then finally, the day came. Using a delivery errand as an excuse, Willow slipped into the residential complex and hid in the hallway outside George's apartment. She had already stuffed balloons into the hallway camera to block the feed, and tucked herself into a dark corner, completely hidden. She waited, no telling how long. At last, she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. She peeked out, and there he was. The man she'd obsessed over all these years had finally come home. He began entering his door code, but then, as if something struck him, he suddenly paused. His head tilted slightly, glancing down the hallway. Willow held her breath. Thankfully, he didn't see her. As soon as he turned back to enter the code again, Willow darted forward. The moment the door swung open, she slipped in behind him like a shadow. She finally saw that stunned expression. George clearly hadn't expected her to show up. He asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" Willow didn't answer. She simply removed her sunglasses, revealing the hollow, damaged socket where her eye used to be. She said, "Long time no see." Chapter 3. George had felt it from the moment he stepped into the complex. Something wasn't right. When he reached his front door, he noticed it. The fingerprint smudges on the smart lock screen weren't his. He was sure of it. The gaze that had been following him from the shadows for so long, Today was the day it would strike. Perfect. It's Willow, isn't it? She finally came. George curved his lips into a subtle smirk. He paused deliberately, leaving an opening. Just as expected, the moment he closed the door, a leg slipped through behind him. He acted startled, stepped to the side just enough to reveal the hallway camera. That's right. His home had already been equipped with full surveillance. The second Willow stepped inside, every move she made was automatically uploaded and backed up to cloud storage. But George didn't act yet. It wasn't time. He was still waiting for the perfect opportunity, for Willow to leave her life behind right here. Chapter 4. Willow held the paring knife in her hand, a twisted smile spreading across her face as she stepped slowly toward George. In a soft, sweet voice, she said, "George, I've missed you so much these past 7 years. Not a moment went by when I wasn't thinking about you, about how cruel you were to me. But it's strange, the crueler you were, the more I loved you. I can't live without you anymore. Ever since I got out, I've been waiting for this day, the day we'd meet again." She gave a light, almost dreamy smile and asked, "George, did you miss me too?" George stood with both hands in his pockets, scoffing coldly. "Willow, have you lost your mind? Just got out of prison and you're already committing another crime. You looking to rot behind bars for the rest of your life?" Willow ignored the mockery. She played with the knife in her hands, a small, sharp blade. She gently stroked the metal, whispering, "George, I know you're disgusted with me, a blind woman. You think I'm hideous, but what if I peeled off my own skin, showed you my truest self? Would you finally understand how much I love you?" George couldn't help but laugh. She was absurd. Enough already. Drop the crazy act. No way you actually think pretending to be mentally ill will make me feel sorry for you, right? You hurt yourself. Come on, stop joking. Playing the victim is your specialty, and now you've even upgraded it to faking mental illness for sympathy. But you know what's truly you? It's not the face you want to peel off. It's that twisted, bitter soul of yours that can't stand the light. I saw through you a long time ago. You won't hurt yourself. You only hurt others, because that's the only way you can reclaim the scraps of self-worth you threw away while selling your own pity. Willow finally looked him in the eye, her brow furrowed, and she clenched the knife tightly. She snorted coldly. "George, you always knew me best. I've thought it through. This is who I am now. I can't change. So I'll make you like me, your girlfriend. You think she'd still want to marry a blind man? Ha ha ha, if anyone's to blame, it's you, for not cherishing me when you had the chance." As Willow advanced, George retreated quickly to the balcony, panic flashing across his face. Suddenly, with his left hand, he pulled out a wad of cash and shouted, "Calm down. Don't do anything crazy. You want money? I've got money. Take it all. Just let me go this once, okay?" But his voice trembled. His hands trembled. He lost his grip. The bills scattered into the air, fluttering and spinning, cascading down from above. The dramatic scene instantly drew the attention of passers-by downstairs. Heads turned. People started pointing up. Willow froze for a split second, but quickly snapped back to reality, charging forward and cornering George on the balcony. The balcony didn't have window enclosures, and now, George had nowhere left to run. He stared at Willow, inching sideways bit by bit. His voice shouted, "Don't come any closer." But his eyes kept darting to the railing. Then, unexpectedly, just as the standoff reached its peak, the door lock suddenly clicked open from the outside. At the most critical moment, George's girlfriend came back. George felt a jolt of dread. How could such a simple plan still go wrong? He had deliberately sent his girlfriend away, to keep her from being involved. Now, seeing George cornered out on the balcony, she shouted, "I've already called the police. Willow, stop right now, there's still time to walk away from this." Willow tilted her head with a cold smile. "Still time? Heh, someone like me, what time do I have left? All I ever wanted was to be with George. What did I even do wrong? But you know what? It's perfect that you showed up. Today, I'm going to show George who really loves him." The moment Willow turned the blade toward George's girlfriend, George had no choice but to lunge forward. He pulled out a stun baton, trying to bring her down, but in the chaos of pushing and shoving, he slipped for just a second, and the knife slashed across his arm. Blood instantly stained his white shirt. Seeing this, George's girlfriend gritted her teeth and rushed in to help, but in the very next second, she accidentally kicked over a potted succulent by the balcony. The pot had been lined with smooth, marble-like glass pebbles. Now those crystal stones scattered across the tile floor. Willow, oblivious, stepped right onto them. Her footing slipped. With both legs skidding out from under her, she instinctively fell forward, straight toward the railing, and in that moment, the balcony railing gave way, as if it had been brittle all along. Willow's body twisted midair like a torn, dying kite, and fell. In that final second, she looked up at George in horror, her eyes wide with disbelief. Her expression twisted in fear and despair, like a severed kite. She plummeted. George and his girlfriend had already backed safely away from the edge, watching it all unfold from a secure distance. Chapter 5. Willow was dead. It was a brutal death. George lived on the 7th floor. When she fell, her chest landed right on a prune tree branch sticking up from the landscaping below, piercing straight through her body. Her arms were twisted behind her back at unnatural angles, and blood kept pouring from her chest. Her face was contorted and hideous. The police arrived quickly. They took George and his girlfriend to the station to make statements. Thanks to the surveillance footage, every second of Willow's break-in and attempted assault had been recorded. In the end, it was ruled that Willow died by accidental fall during an attempted murder and unlawful entry, and George and his girlfriend were confirmed to have acted purely in self-defense. Chapter 6. A week later, George's parents returned from a trip. When they learned what had happened, they were stunned and in disbelief, but in the end, they could only comfort their son and future daughter-in-law, saying, "It's over now." That terrifying woman would never come back to haunt them again. To clear his mind, George and his girlfriend took a trip out of town. One evening, they walked along the beach. Suddenly, she asked, "That day, when you sent me away, was it because you wanted her to come after just you? Were you planning to trade your life to send her back to prison? That's too cruel." "I don't want to lose you." George gave a faint smile, and replied vaguely, "What matters is, it's all over now. Willow is dead." She didn't say anything more. She simply held him tightly, but in her heart, she remembered something from half a month ago. George had suddenly mentioned wanting to install floor-to-ceiling windows on the balcony. He had already contacted a company to custom-make the glass, and had even brought in workers to cut away the original iron railing. But midway through the process, the glass supplier had a sudden issue, delaying the installation, and it just so happened. In the days that followed, Willow broke into their home. That partially cut, unstable railing became Willow's death sentence. No one could have predicted it, but it happened. Perhaps karma really does exist. How could this not be fate? At least now, the person who had haunted them for so long was finally gone. Forever, and in the days to come, she would stay by George's side, always.